He had been to countless events, walked through luxurious halls, and seen more wealth than most people could ever imagine. But something about tonight was different. The charity event was finishing. The chandeliers were dimmed, and the sound of polite applause had already faded into the background. People in elegant clothes moved quickly, some laughing softly, others lost in quiet conversations. He wanted nothing more than to leave, to return to his private life, to his empty mansion that felt too big without the laughter of someone he had lost years ago. As he stepped outside, the crisp night air brushing his face, he noticed a small figure near the edge of the street. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8, was standing close to a woman who looked tired and worn from a long day. Her clothes were old, a little too big, and patched in places. Her hair had been brushed, but strands were loose and messy. She seemed out of place in the glow of the city lights. But it wasn't her clothing or tired expression that made him stop in his tracks. It was what she was wearing around her neck. The necklace glimmered in the streetlight. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. He blinked, rubbed them, and looked again. No, it couldn't be. But it was. The delicate chain and the pendant were unmistakable. It was his long-lost necklace, the one that had disappeared the night his family life had fallen apart, the one that had haunted his dreams for years. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, a mix of disbelief and hope, and something deep inside him stirred, a feeling he had almost forgotten existed. He took a careful step closer, pretending to adjust his coat as he studied them from a distance. He didn't want to scare them away. The little girl's eyes were bright, innocent, and curious. She looked around, holding the necklace with both small hands, as if it was the most precious thing she owned. Her mother watched her carefully, a hand resting gently on the girl's shoulder, keeping her close. The woman's eyes met his briefly, and he saw the exhaustion, the worry, and the silent strength in her gaze. His mind raced. Could it really be? How had it ended up here, with this poor little girl, in this unlikely place? Questions and memories collided in his head. He remembered the night he lost everything, the panic, the shouting, the chaos, and then the silence that followed. The necklace had been a gift from someone he loved deeply, a symbol of a promise, a symbol of hope that had vanished with everything else. And now, here it was, shimmering around a child's neck, as if fate itself had returned it to him. He wanted to speak, to approach them immediately, but he held back. The city street was quiet, and the girl seemed unaware of his presence. He didn't want to startle her. Instead, he instructed his security team, quietly but firmly, to follow them from a distance. He had to know more. He had to understand how this little girl came to have something that meant so much to him. It was dangerous, he realized, to jump to conclusions, but he could not ignore the connection that seemed almost impossible. The girl's mother moved carefully, guiding her daughter along the sidewalk. She didn't rush, but her eyes constantly scanned the street, as if they were always aware of possible dangers. The girl's small hand clutched the necklace tightly, and she occasionally looked up at her mother, asking soft questions in a voice full of curiosity and innocence. Her mother responded gently, her voice tired but soothing. Every step they took, he followed, staying far enough behind to remain unnoticed, close enough to see everything. The city lights reflected off the windows and the puddles on the ground. He noticed how the little girl paused to look at the reflection of the necklace in the water, her small fingers tracing its shape, turning it over with awe. It struck him how simple and human the moment was, how fragile life could be. She was just a child, unaware of the weight the necklace carried, unaware of the history and heartbreak it represented. And yet, she wore it as if it belonged to her, as if it had been waiting for her all along. As they walked, he remembered the nights he had spent searching, the endless trips to hospitals, police stations, and even places he had never thought to go. The necklace had always been the last thread of hope, a symbol that maybe, just maybe, there was a connection to hold on to. Seeing it now, shining so simply on this child, brought a mix of emotions he could hardly contain. He felt the ache of loss, the sting of years gone by, and the faint glimmer of hope all at once. He watched as they entered a small, run-down building at the edge of the street. The mother carefully opened the door and led the girl inside. The lights inside were dim, and through the window he could see the small apartment. It was cramped, with signs of struggle everywhere, but there was also warmth, a small plant on the windowsill, a few toys neatly placed in a corner, and a blanket folded carefully on a chair. It was clear that despite their hardships, the mother did everything she could to create a safe space for her child. He remained outside, hidden in the shadows, taking in the scene. The necklace caught the faint light from the street once more, a quiet reminder of the connection that had brought him here. He felt a strange sense of responsibility, a pull stronger than any business deal or fortune he had ever encountered. This child, unaware of her own importance, had somehow carried a piece of his past into the present, and he could not turn away. He thought about how to approach the situation carefully. He couldn't simply walk in and demand answers. That would scare the child and her mother, and it could ruin whatever chance he had to understand the truth. Patience would be needed, and perhaps a careful introduction under the guise of someone who could help, someone who had no immediate claim to the mysterious necklace. He needed to learn about their story, to listen, and to connect without fear or judgment. Night deepened, and he reluctantly left the building, instructing his team to stay nearby. He walked alone for a while, his mind heavy with memories and questions. Every step felt surreal. How had fate brought him here, to this quiet street, to this small apartment, to a child wearing a necklace that had haunted him for years? He felt the tension of anticipation mixed with the uncertainty of what would come next. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself to imagine a future, a small glimmer of what could be possible if the pieces of the past could somehow be reconciled with the present. He could not ignore the feeling that this meeting, this encounter, would change everything. It was no longer just about wealth or loss. It was about human connection, about finding what had been lost and perhaps building something new. He returned to his car, sitting in the quiet night, thinking about how to proceed. There were so many unknowns, but one thing was certain. He could not walk away. He could not leave the necklace, the girl, and her mother to chance. He made a silent promise to himself that he would uncover the truth. No matter how long it took, no matter what obstacles lay ahead, the street was empty now, the city moving on without noticing the quiet drama that had unfolded. But for him, the night was alive with possibility. He could almost feel the threads of destiny connecting him to the little girl, pulling him forward. He knew that the next steps would be delicate, that every word and action mattered. Yet, deep inside, he felt a flicker of hope he had not felt in years, the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, life had a way of returning what was lost in the most unexpected ways. The little girl woke up early that morning, rubbing her eyes as the sunlight crept through the thin curtains. The room was small, filled with quiet signs of struggle. A few toys lay scattered on the floor. A small wooden chair stood near the window, and the smell of breakfast cooking on a tiny stove drifted through the air. Her mother was already moving around, preparing whatever simple meal they could manage for the day. The girl tugged lightly at the necklace around her neck. It was delicate, beautiful, and unlike anything she had seen before. Her mother noticed her touching it and smiled softly, though there was a sadness in her eyes. She reminded the girl to take care of it, to always remember where it came from, but she never spoke too much about its history. She simply wanted the child to cherish it without fear or confusion. After breakfast, the mother prepared the girl for school. They didn't have new clothes or fancy shoes, just what was necessary to get by. Yet there was pride in the mother's careful dressing of her daughter, a way to preserve dignity even in hardship. The girl, sensing her mother's effort, smiled shyly and hugged her. Before leaving the small apartment for the day, the streets were alive with people rushing to work. The hum of cars and the occasional street vendor calling out. The girl walked carefully, her small hands clutching the necklace, aware that it was precious and fragile. She noticed small things others might miss. The way a stray dog sniffed near a trash can. The way sunlight reflected off puddles after the morning rain. These were moments of quiet wonder in a life that was often filled with struggle. As she approached school, she saw other children running ahead, laughing with backpacks bouncing. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she belonged among them. Some kids stared at her worn clothes, whispering quietly, and she felt a small pang of sadness. But then she remembered her mother's words about being strong and proud. She straightened her back, held her head high, and walked with quiet confidence, the necklace still shining in the morning light. Inside the classroom, she tried her best to keep up with lessons. Her teachers were kind but busy, often unable to notice every detail. She worked diligently, raising her hand when she knew the answer, though sometimes hesitation held her back. She loved learning, and each small success felt like a victory. The necklace hung gently around her neck, unnoticed by most, but it held a quiet power, a reminder that even small things could carry meaning. At recess, she played with a few classmates who accepted her without question. They ran and laughed, sharing stories of home and dreams for the future. She joined in, feeling a brief escape from the weight of her reality. Yet, in the back of her mind, the necklace remained a quiet thought, a mysterious gift that connected her to something beyond her understanding. It gave her a sense of wonder, a feeling that the world might be bigger than her small struggles. After school, she walked back home, careful to avoid the rough edges of the busy streets. She helped her mother with chores, fetching water, tidying the small apartment, and preparing a simple dinner. The mother always praised her daughter's efforts, and even in exhaustion, they shared smiles that made the small space feel warm and alive. The evening settled over the city, and the little girl sat by the window, the necklace glinting in the fading sunlight. She imagined the stories behind it, crafting her own ideas of who it had belonged to before her. She pictured kings and queens, grand adventures, and faraway lands, though in reality, her life was far simpler. Yet the necklace sparked her imagination, and she felt a connection to something larger than herself. Meanwhile, the billionaire watched from a distance, studying their movements. He saw the way the girl walked, how she treated her mother with care and respect, how her small hands clutched the necklace as if it were the most important thing in the world. He noticed the kindness in their interactions, the quiet dignity they carried despite their hardships. It was clear to him that this was no ordinary child, and the necklace was more than just a beautiful object. It was a symbol of something lost, and now perhaps found. He considered approaching them directly, but he knew that rushing could cause fear or misunderstanding. Instead, he spent time observing, taking note of their daily routine, understanding their lives without interfering. He realized that every small act of love, every quiet struggle, revealed the strength and humanity in both the mother and daughter. It deepened his resolve to connect with them, not out of curiosity alone, but out of a genuine desire to make a difference. The day passed slowly. The little girl helped her mother prepare for the night, and they shared a simple meal together. Laughter filled the small apartment briefly, a fragile but genuine sound. The necklace rested against her chest, catching the light and reminding them both of the mystery and beauty in life's small treasures. As night fell, the little girl laid down to sleep, still wearing the necklace around her neck. She dreamed of adventures, of kindness, and of the unknown paths her life might take. Her mother watched over her, a silent guardian, grateful for the small joys they could still share. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding in a tiny apartment. A small girl holding on to a piece of the past that could change everything. For the billionaire, the day's observations left him with a mixture of awe and responsibility. He understood that this was only the beginning. The girl and her mother were living embodiments of hope, resilience, and human spirit. The necklace was more than a symbol. It was a bridge between past loss and potential future connection. He knew that when the time was right, he would step forward, but for now, he let them live their day, uninterrupted, learning and growing as they always had, while he prepared for the moment when their lives would finally intersect. The next morning, the little girl woke up with the sunlight brushing her face, the necklace around her neck glinting faintly in the early light. She rubbed her eyes and looked around the small apartment, noticing the familiar signs of her modest life. Her mother was already up, quietly preparing breakfast with careful movements. The girl helped without being asked, a routine that had become part of their life. Each small act of care seemed to hold more meaning than words could express. Meanwhile, the billionaire had been thinking all night about how to approach the mother and child. He reviewed everything he had seen, every gesture, every small detail. He wanted to act carefully, to understand their story fully before making any move. This was not about money or status. It was about human connection and a long-lost link that could not be ignored. The necklace had become a symbol, a bridge between his past and a potential future. The mother and daughter left the apartment for the day. The streets were bustling, full of sounds, smells, and motion. The little girl held the necklace tightly as they walked, unaware of the man who was observing them from a distance, learning about their lives. He watched how they interacted with the world, how the mother spoke gently, how the girl responded with care, and how both navigated a life that was full of struggle, yet managed to preserve dignity and hope. A small park. The little girl played briefly, laughing softly as she chased after a ball. Her mother sat on a bench, watching her with a careful, protective eye. The billionaire stayed hidden behind trees and other obstacles, observing, learning about their interactions, their routines, and their bond. He noticed small things, the girl's curiosity, her attentiveness to others, the way her mother encouraged her to be kind and thoughtful despite hardships. These simple human details made him feel an even stronger connection, a desire to step in, but with caution and respect. As the day went on, the billionaire arranged for a subtle way to approach them. He thought about how to introduce himself without frightening them. He knew he could not simply demand answers or reveal his identity immediately. Trust had to be built. Understanding had to come first. He decided to meet the mother alone, hoping to gain insight into their story and perhaps learn about the origin of the necklace. Later in the day, he waited near a small cafe where the mother occasionally went to buy groceries. When she arrived, carrying a bag and keeping her child close by, he approached quietly, careful to appear as a helpful stranger rather than someone with a hidden agenda. He greeted her politely and asked about the neighborhood, casually engaging in conversation. The mother responded cautiously, her eyes scanning him briefly, aware but not alarmed. There was a natural wariness, a protective instinct for her child. After some conversation, he gently inquired about the necklace. He asked where it came from, keeping his tone light and curious. The mother hesitated, her fingers tightening on the bag she carried. Then, after a moment of careful thought, she spoke. She told him that the necklace had been given to the girl by a kind woman many years ago, a woman who had entrusted her with something precious before passing away. Her voice carried a mixture of sadness and respect, and she emphasized that it had been a gift meant to protect and guide her child. She did not know the full story, only that it was important and should be treasured. Hearing this, the billionaire's heart raced. Every word confirmed what he had feared and hoped, that the necklace had a connection to someone from his past. He listened carefully, asking gentle questions, never revealing the depth of his knowledge or emotion. The mother answered honestly, showing trust even though she did not fully understand why he cared so deeply. He noticed her strength, her quiet determination, and the love she had for her child. These were qualities that resonated deeply with him, reminding him of what he had lost years ago. As they spoke, he observed the little girl nearby, playing quietly but keeping the necklace close. She was curious but well behaved, aware of her mother's presence. The billionaire felt a mix of awe and responsibility. This child, so young and vulnerable, had unknowingly carried a piece of history that could change everything. He realized that he had to approach this situation with patience, respect, and care, understanding that trust and connection could not be rushed out throughout the day. He continued to watch, ensuring that they were safe while also learning more about their lives. He saw how they faced challenges with courage, how the mother worked tirelessly to provide for her child, and how the girl's small gestures of kindness reflected the lessons she had learned at home. Every observation strengthened his resolve to connect with them, to bridge the gap between past and present, and to protect what had survived the years. By evening, he had a clearer picture. The mother and child were resilient, humble, and full of quiet strength. The necklace was more than a valuable object. It was a symbol of protection, trust, and connection. He understood that revealing his identity or intentions too soon could disrupt the delicate balance of their lives. He needed to plan carefully, ensuring that when the time came, he would approach them in a way that was meaningful and safe. He left the area as the sun set, the streets growing quiet and the city lights reflecting off the pavements. The mother and child returned home, tired but content, unaware of the careful watch that had followed their steps throughout the day. They shared a simple dinner, their laughter and small moments of joy filling the apartment with warmth. The necklace rested against the girl's chest, catching the light and reminding them both of a mystery they could not fully understand, but that held significance. That night, the billionaire reflected on everything he had learned. He knew that the necklace was a key, a connection to a long-lost part of his life. He also knew that approaching them required delicacy, patience, and understanding. This was not just about reclaiming a piece of the past. It was about building trust, understanding human stories, and respecting the lives of those involved. He felt a quiet determination, a sense of purpose that went beyond his wealth and status. As the girl lay in bed, dreaming of adventures and the unknown, and her mother watched over her with a mixture of love and concern. The billionaire planned his next step. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with questions and potential challenges, but he felt a renewed sense of hope. He understood that this was only the beginning, that the story was unfolding in ways that demanded care and attention. He vowed to approach with patience, respect, and a genuine desire to connect, knowing that the lives of these two remarkable individuals would forever change his own. The next day, the billionaire returned to the city with a careful plan in mind. He knew that this was the moment to reach out, to gently step into the lives of the mother and daughter. He parked a short distance from their apartment and walked slowly, observing the familiar streets. The sunlight glinted off the buildings, and the sounds of the city filled the air, a constant reminder that life moved forward even in the smallest corners. He spotted the mother and daughter, leaving the apartment for their daily routines. The little girl clutched the necklace tightly, and her mother walked beside her, steady and calm, yet always watchful. The billionaire approached cautiously, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. He wanted them to see him as someone kind and reliable, someone who meant no harm. Every step he took, he reminded himself to be gentle, patient, and understanding. When he finally reached them, he smiled softly and greeted the mother with a warm, respectful tone. She looked at him with cautious curiosity, unsure of who he was, but sensing that he was not a threat. He introduced himself as someone who had a connection to the necklace and expressed a genuine interest in its story. He avoided revealing too much too soon, careful not to alarm or overwhelm her. He asked simple questions, allowing her to explain without feeling pressured. The mother hesitated at first, glancing at her daughter before speaking. She explained once more how the necklace had come into their possession, telling the story of the kind woman who had entrusted it to her when she had no one else to care for the child. Her voice was soft, carrying emotion that revealed both grief and gratitude. She did not know the full history, only that it had been given as a token of protection and love. The billionaire listened intently, nodding, allowing the mother to feel heard. He asked gentle follow-up questions, carefully drawing out details that might help him understand the necklace's origins. With every word, his hope grew, but he remained composed, ensuring that his demeanor was calm and supportive. He noticed the little girl watching him with quiet curiosity, her eyes wide but trusting, as if sensing the sincerity in his presence. Finally, he took a careful breath and shared a small portion of the truth. He explained that the necklace had belonged to someone very close to him, someone who had disappeared years ago, and that it carried great importance. He did not overwhelm them with the details of his personal loss, but he allowed enough information to show that he was deeply connected to the necklace, and that it was not simply a piece of jewelry. The mother's eyes widened in surprise, and the girl held the necklace more tightly. Sensing a change in the atmosphere, the billionaire suggested that they meet somewhere private, a quiet place where they could talk without interruptions. The mother agreed, her curiosity piqued, and they walked together to a small park nearby. The little girl ran ahead briefly, then returned to sit with her mother on a bench. The billionaire remained standing, giving them space, showing respect for their comfort and boundaries. Once seated, he gently explained more about the necklace and its history. He spoke in simple words, avoiding complicated explanations, but conveying the depth of its importance. He told them that it had been missing for many years, and that finding it with the little girl could not have been a coincidence. His voice carried both emotion and calm authority, letting them understand that he was sincere without making them feel pressured. The mother listened carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to cautious wonder. She had always known the necklace was special, but she could not have imagined the connection it held. The little girl looked at him with wide eyes, holding the necklace as if it were a treasure beyond understanding. Her innocence and trust were palpable, and it strengthened his resolve to handle the situation with care and compassion. As the conversation continued, the billionaire suggested a discreet DNA test to confirm what he suspected. He explained it gently, emphasizing that there was no pressure and that he simply wanted to know the truth. The mother agreed, realizing that this could answer questions she had never dared to ask. The little girl, sensing the importance, stayed close to her mother, holding the necklace and watching the adults with quiet attention. A few days later, the results came back. The DNA confirmed what he had hoped. The little girl was indeed his daughter. The truth settled over them like a gentle wave, bringing both relief and awe. The mother looked at him with a mixture of wonder, gratitude, and cautious curiosity. She had been entrusted with a child of extraordinary significance, and now the connection was clear. The little girl, still too young to fully understand, sensed the importance through the emotions surrounding her. The billionaire felt a surge of emotion he had not experienced in years. He knelt down to meet his daughter at her level, speaking softly, letting her feel the sincerity in his voice. She looked up at him, sensing no fear, only warmth and care. He reached out slowly, allowing her to take her first steps toward trust. And she did, holding his hand briefly, testing the new connection. It was a quiet, profound moment, full of human emotion and unspoken understanding. From that day forward, he visited them often, gradually becoming a part of their daily lives. He learned about the girl's habits, her interests, her dreams, and her fears. He listened to the mother, respecting her role and the trust she had given him. Every interaction was careful, gentle, and respectful, building a bond that had been missing for years. The necklace, once a symbol of loss, now became a symbol of hope, trust, and new beginnings. He arranged small gestures of kindness, helping them without overwhelming their lives. He ensured that their routines were respected, that their dignity was preserved, and that the little girl felt safe and loved. Every step forward was taken with patience, understanding, and care. He realized that the true wealth in life was not measured by money or possessions, but by the bonds we form and the lives we touch. Evenings were spent together, talking quietly, sharing small meals, and enjoying simple pleasures. The girl began to feel comfortable around him, laughing more freely, exploring her world with a sense of security she had never known before. The mother watched with cautious happiness, grateful for the presence of someone who truly cared and who respected the life they had built together despite hardships. Through these days, the billionaire reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The necklace had been a key, a guide to finding something he thought was lost forever. It had led him not only to a piece of his past, but to a living connection that could heal wounds and create a future filled with love and trust. He understood that patience, empathy, and human connection were more valuable than anything he had ever owned. By the time the first month had passed, the bond between them had strengthened. The little girl laughed freely, the mother smiled more openly, and the billionaire felt a sense of peace and purpose that had been missing for years. The necklace was no longer just an object. It was a symbol of destiny, resilience, and the enduring power of human connection. The story was far from over, but the foundation for a new life, built on trust and care, had been firmly established. The days that followed the confirmation of the DNA test were filled with quiet moments of discovery and careful bonding. The billionaire understood that rebuilding a relationship with his daughter and her mother would not happen overnight. Each interaction, each shared glance, and each simple act of kindness mattered more than grand gestures or words. He wanted to be present in their lives, but in a way that respected their routines and the lives they had built despite hardship. He began visiting them regularly, sometimes joining them for a simple breakfast, sometimes helping with small tasks around their apartment. The little girl grew used to his presence, no longer viewing him as a stranger, but as someone who cared. She began to ask him questions about his life, about the world beyond her neighborhood, and he answered with honesty, keeping his explanations simple and relatable. He encouraged her curiosity, making her feel that her thoughts and ideas were important. The mother watched these interactions closely, her initial caution slowly giving way to trust. She saw how he treated her daughter with respect, patience, and genuine affection. She saw how he listened without judgment, how he celebrated the girl's small victories, and how he allowed her to explore and learn at her own pace. This trust was fragile but growing, and the billionaire understood the responsibility that came with it. He did not want to disrupt their lives, but to enhance them in meaningful ways. The little girl began to feel a sense of security she had never known. She played more freely, laughed more openly, and began to share her thoughts and feelings without fear. The necklace, once a mysterious object, now represented a bridge between her past and the possibilities of the future. She wore it proudly, understanding that it connected her to someone who had once been missing from her life, but was now becoming an important part of it. Together, they spent quiet evenings in the small apartment, sharing stories, laughter, and even tears. He listened to the mother's experiences, learning about the struggles she had faced in raising her daughter alone, and he offered support without overstepping. He shared stories of his own past, not to boast or dwell on wealth, but to connect, to show that life could be complicated and challenging for everyone, regardless of status. These moments built a foundation of trust and understanding. Not slowly, he introduced small changes to their life, carefully and thoughtfully. He helped improve the apartment in subtle ways, ensuring comfort and safety without overwhelming their sense of home. He brought books, educational materials, and simple toys, not as gifts of wealth, but as tools to encourage learning and imagination. The little girl's eyes lit up with wonder at each small addition, and he marveled at her intelligence, curiosity, and resilience. Week by week, their bond strengthened. The billionaire spent time walking with his daughter, showing her the world outside their neighborhood, explaining things in ways that were relatable and engaging. He encouraged her to dream, to explore, and to believe that life could be full of possibilities. He admired the mother's strength, her dedication, and her love, and he sought ways to support her without diminishing her role as the child's primary caregiver. The little girl began to trust him completely, sharing her fears, joys, and dreams. She spoke about her hopes for school, her curiosity about the world, and the small joys that brought her happiness. He listened attentively, never dismissing her feelings, always encouraging her to explore and understand life. Each moment of connection, each shared smile or gentle word, built a bond that felt real and lasting. The mother, seeing the change in her daughter, allowed herself to open up as well. She shared memories, hopes, and even fears, finding comfort in someone who had no judgment, only care and understanding. The billionaire respected every boundary, understanding that trust had to be earned and maintained with patience. He knew that his role was not to take over their lives, but to be a supportive presence, a steady hand in a world that had often been harsh and unpredictable. As months passed, the three of them began to build a new life together. They shared meals, laughter, and quiet evenings filled with stories and learning. The little girl's joy was evident in every interaction, her laughter filling the small apartment with warmth. The necklace, once a symbol of loss and mystery, now symbolized hope, connection, and the possibility of a future filled with love and care. It reminded them all that even in hardship, life could bring unexpected blessings. The billionaire arranged for small adventures, taking his daughter to parks, libraries, and places where she could explore her interests and talents. He encouraged her to pursue education, creativity, and curiosity, always ensuring that she felt supported but never pressured. The mother observed these experiences, grateful for the positive influence, yet confident that her daughter's life remained grounded in the love and care she had always provided. Slowly, he became a part of their everyday life. He helped with errands, celebrated small victories, and offered guidance when asked. The little girl's growth, happiness, and confidence became a source of joy for him, a reminder of why he had come into their lives in the first place. The mother felt a sense of relief, knowing that someone genuinely cared for them, someone who respected their past, their struggles, and their dignity. The bond they shared grew stronger with each passing day. The billionaire understood that family was not only about blood or wealth, but about care, trust, and shared experiences. He realized that life's true value was in these human connections, in the quiet moments of understanding, empathy, and love. The little girl, now secure and happy, wore the necklace proudly, a symbol of the journey that had brought them together and a promise of the life ahead. Evenings became a time for storytelling, laughter, and reflection. They shared memories, hopes, and dreams, building a sense of belonging and love that had been missing for years. The mother, once cautious and wary, now trusted him fully, appreciating the balance of care and respect he brought to their lives. The billionaire felt a peace he had not known in years, a quiet joy in seeing his daughter thrive and knowing that he was a part of her life. Through it all, the necklace remained a silent witness to the journey, a symbol of loss transformed into hope, of connection rediscovered, and of the human capacity to love and care beyond circumstance. It hung around the girl's neck, catching the light, reminding them all that life could bring miracles in the most unexpected ways. The billionaire walked his daughter to school one morning, her small hand holding his, the necklace glinting softly against her chest. She looked up at him with a bright smile, full of trust and curiosity, and he smiled back, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. The mother followed nearby, watching them with a smile that spoke of relief, hope, and gratitude. In that simple moment, the past and future converged, and a new chapter began. From that day forward, their lives continued to intertwine, full of laughter, learning, and the quiet moments that made life meaningful. The billionaire understood that wealth alone could never bring this joy. It was the human connection, the care, and the love that had filled the spaces once empty. The little girl thrived, her mother found comfort and support, and together they built a life filled with hope, trust, and the promise of a bright future. The necklace, once lost, had become a symbol not only of the past, but of the enduring power of human love and resilience.